On the eve of our wedding, Troy Lu cheated on me with my cousin. He thought I would make a scene and call off the engagement. Unexpectedly, not only did I personally help him get dressed, but I also generously forgave his infidelity. My cousin faked a pregnancy to force the issue, and Troy Lu called to order me to go back and sign the divorce papers immediately. I sent over a bed photo. Compared to him, you're such a weakling, after dating for 3 years and being married for 5. Troy Lu appeared before me with his arm around my cousin. Vivi is pregnant with my child. It's time you stop occupying the title of Mrs. Lu. Troy Lu touched Vivi Chen's barely noticeable pregnant belly and looked at me with eyes full of disgust. I was so angry I laughed. No wonder people say cheating only happens 0 times or countless times. Vivi Chen, how desperate for men are you? Even your own brother-in-law isn't off limits to you. Hearing my harsh words, Vivi Chen's tears instantly welled up, and her pitiful expression nearly broke Troy Lu's heart. Chen Rui, that's enough. It's me who wants to love Vivi. It's me who wants to have children with Vivi. If you have any resentment, direct it at me. Before Troy Lu could finish his last sentence, my full force slap landed on his face. Perhaps not expecting me to strike, Troy Lu's expression turned as dark as coal. How could you hit someone? Troy, does it hurt? Vivi Chen scolded me sharply while tenderly blowing on Troy Lu's instantly swollen cheek. I felt somewhat nauseated by such a scene. Troy Lu, please get this straight. This position as Mrs. Lu wasn't something I wanted to claim. It was forced upon me by your family. If you want me to step aside, you'll have to get past your mother first. With that, I turned and left without looking back. Troy Lu was my first love and, to this day, the only man I have ever genuinely liked. I believe he once truly liked me too, but that affection vanished the moment Vivi Chen entered his life. Vivi Chen is my cousin, the kind without any blood relation. She was an orphan adopted by my uncle when I was 3 years old, and she is the same age as me. After my uncle passed away due to illness, my mother took on the responsibility of caring for her, not only supporting her through college but also sending her abroad for further studies, because we were close in age. We used to be best friends who shared everything. When I was dating Troy Lu, Vivi Chen was still studying abroad. At that time, she even joked that once she returned to China, she must meet the man who had me so utterly infatuated, saying she wanted to vet him for me, afraid that someone might take advantage of my naive nature. But when she actually met Troy Lu and learned that he was the future heir to the Lu Group, she ended up getting him into her bed. Troy Lu's family was very satisfied with me. After dating for 3 years, we got engaged in the presence of both families and set a wedding date. At the time, I was so caught up in fantasizing about the happy life I would have as Mrs. Lu that I completely overlooked Troy Lu's restless demeanor and the ambiguous glances he exchanged with Vivi Chen during the engagement party. It wasn't until the eve of our wedding, when I stopped by the bridal suite to pick up some things for the next day, that I realized just how blind I had been. The sight of clothes scattered all over the floor and the sounds of heavy breathing and seductive moans coming from the room made it painfully clear. I kicked open the door almost without thinking. Seeing their entangled figures and the look of shock that quickly replaced Vivi Chen's expression of pleasure, I instantly felt nauseous. Troy Lu pulled the nearby blanket over them. He seemed displeased that I had interrupted his moment, yet also slightly embarrassed at being caught. Don't blame Vivi, I couldn't help myself with her. I didn't respond, just dug my nails deep into my palms, my gaze chillingly cold. One was the person I loved most. The other was someone I'd called sister for years, a presence like a best friend, that I could stand there without rushing forward to tear them apart like some shrew. They should truly thank these 20+ years of upbringing I've had. Vivi Chen nestled delicately in Troy Lu's embrace, her delicate, boneless hand gently resting on his chest. She didn't speak, but her actions clearly told me she was provoking me. Look, the man you're obsessed with, I can have him effortlessly. For a full half-minute, the entire space was eerily silent. Neither Troy Lu nor Vivi Chen seemed to expect my reaction to be so slow. Just as they were struggling to figure out how to break this awkward silence, I suddenly bent down and picked up the clothes from the floor. I threw their clothes onto the bed and told them to get dressed and meet me in the living room. By the time Troy Lu and Vivi Chen came out dressed, Half an hour had already passed. During that half hour, they were inside figuring out how to deal with me, while I was outside plotting my revenge. I'm not a good person. Since childhood, the principle I've lived by is, if others don't provoke me, I won't provoke them. But if they do, I'll make sure they suffer, if not death. Then at least a layer of skin peeled off. If they had told me the moment they fell for each other, no matter how much it hurt, I would have chosen to step back without hesitation, because unwavering devotion is the instinct of love, but shifting affections is human nature. I wouldn't force what isn't meant to be. Their greatest wrong wasn't the betrayal itself, but indulging in the thrill of their affair while letting me, like a fool, cling to dreams of happiness that could never be. Since you've seen everything, what about our wedding tomorrow? The wedding will proceed as scheduled tomorrow. Ignoring the sight of Troy Lu and Vivi Chen holding hands tightly, I stood up and grabbed the coat nearby to help Troy Lu put it on. Both your parents and mine are really looking forward to this wedding. I don't want to disappoint them. Let's just treat what happened today as an accident. Are you really okay with this? Troy Lu didn't expect me to suddenly be so generous. After all, when we were dating, I was famously known as the jealousy queen. Seeing me nod seriously, Troy Lu ultimately attributed my unusual behavior to being too eager to marry him and not wanting to lose him. Compared to Troy Lu's barely concealed smugness, Vivi Chen's face showed a hint of anxiety. She thought she knew me well, believing that as long as I caught Troy Lu and her together, the engagement would naturally fall through. After that, with a little pillow talk, the position of Mrs. Lu would be hers. But what she didn't know was that my marriage to Troy Lu, apart from my genuine affection for him, was largely an arranged alliance between our families. I could afford to be willful, but a business marriage was no child's play. The Chen family needed the Lu family's resources to achieve their 5-year plan for commercial transformation, while the Lu family relied on the Chen family's substantial cash flow to survive the brutal cutthroat competition. Thus, the union between the Chen and Lu families was a done deal. Troy Lu understands this better than I do. Therefore, upon hearing that the wedding would proceed as planned, he visibly let out a sigh of relief. Seeing that our wedding plans remained intact, Vivi Chen started causing trouble again. First, she pretended to feel guilty and apologized to me when I ignored her. She turned to Troy Lu with a pitiful look. Troy, I know I shouldn't love you, but I can't control myself. I've wronged the Chen family and Xiaorui. I might as well just die. Vivi Chen pretended to run outside, while Troy Lu held her tightly with heartache. Right in front of me, he kissed her forehead while comforting her, saying he would protect her no matter what and that he would only love her in this lifetime. Marrying me as originally planned was just to avoid disappointing his parents. Even though I now see Troy Lu's true nature clearly, this scene before me still pierces my heart deeply. After 3 years of dating, he had never treated me with such tenderness before, always maintaining an aloof and distant demeanor. I thought it was just his personality. Unaware that his gentleness was reserved only for Vivi Chen, not wanting to watch Vivi Chen continue her act to provoke me, I coldly tossed out a sentence before walking away. Don't forget, sis. You're still my bridesmaid tomorrow. Remember to go early. The sound of Vivi Chen's sobbing after her shock and Troy Lu's comforting words were shut behind the door by me. It wasn't until I got into the car that the emotions I had been suppressing burst out like a flood. I cried as if I had lost my husband, pounding the steering wheel in frustration, only to accidentally hit the horn. A few seconds later, a man approached and knocked on my car window. Perhaps he didn't expect me to cry so hard. As a fleeting look of surprise crossed the man's handsome face. No offense, but your car is blocking mine. After saying this, the man somewhat awkwardly handed me a pack of tissues. After hurriedly apologizing, I intended to drive away immediately, but unexpectedly, he stepped in front of my car and started making a phone call. The feeling of being teased sent my anger skyrocketing. I was just about to curse him for being insane when a person wearing a designated driver's uniform approached from not far away. Although I don't know what upsetting things you've encountered, driving in your current emotional state is extremely unsafe, so I took the liberty of calling a designated driver for you. I've seen people who meddle in others' business, but this was the first time I'd encountered someone who meddled to this extent. rolling my eyes inwardly. I outright rejected the man's unnecessary interference, stepped on the gas, and drove off in my car. LOL. Forget about whether he was in cahoots with the designated driver as a scammer. Just looking at the state I'm in now, I'd rather die than be alone in a space with a stranger again. Early the next morning, as soon as the makeup artist finished my makeup, Vivi Chen walked in right behind Troy Lu, despite having mentally prepared myself overnight. I still felt a chill of disgust when I saw this backstabbing pair. Just as I expected, Vivi Chen didn't wear the bridesmaid dress I had prepared for her earlier. Instead, she chose a pure white gown. At first glance, this dress might not seem like much, but when paired with Troy Lu's groom's attire, there's a subtle yet perfect harmony. I naturally know what Vivi Chen is thinking, but I'm not one to be trifled with either, though I've convinced myself that all I need is the title of Mrs. Lu. Enduring 5 years to give the Chen family a complete reshuffle, I won't let anyone humiliate me on my own turf. If you're going to be so blatant about being the other woman, then don't blame me for disregarding past affections and embarrassing you. Vivi Chen had just had half her lipstick eaten off by Troy Lu when she was called away by Mrs. Lu. Watching the surveillance footage of Vivi Chen being slapped to the ground by Mrs. Lu, the nausea in my heart instantly eased quite a bit. Though it was me who deliberately gave them space to fool around, leading to their discovery by the Lu family. But no matter what, I never expected they'd be bold enough to go at it like a house on fire just 1 hour before the wedding ceremony. If it weren't for Mrs. Lu hastily arranging for someone to send Troy Lu away, the two would have likely been lost in passion, oblivious to the world around them. Mrs. Lu's original family had been torn apart by the appearance of a third party. Thus, in this lifetime, what she detests most are homewreckers. Vivi Chen's dress was torn to shreds in her fury. If not for her upbringing restraining her rationality, she might have already cursed Vivi Chen's ancestors 18 generations back. Fearing that I might discover Troy Lu's infidelity, Mrs. Lu initially wanted to prevent Vivi Chen from attending the wedding as my bridesmaid. However, I insisted that Vivi Chen continue as my bridesmaid, reasoning that since the groomsmen had already arrived, it would be improper to lack a bridesmaid. In the end, Vivi Chen, whose dress had been ruined, had no choice but to put on the outfit I had previously selected for her. She stood resentfully by my side, watching as Troy Lu and I completed the wedding ceremony. Troy Lu said that even though he married me for the sake of the Chen and Lu families, he would never touch me after marriage because his true love was only one person, Vivi Chen. Though my face showed deep disappointment, I secretly breathed a huge sigh of relief in my heart, as if I cared about a man who was already tainted. After marriage, I tried my best to hide the truth from my parents, not letting them know about my real married life with Troy Lu. But due to Vivi Chen and Troy Lu's unrestrained behavior without regard for others, it didn't take long before my parents learned about my true situation. My mother cried, saying we'd raised an ungrateful wretch at home, who ended up harming her only daughter. My father, with his thunderous methods, directly kicked Vivi Chen out of the Chen family and cut off all her financial support. After losing the backing of the Chen family, Vivi Chen completely became Troy Lu's caged canary. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye, with the Lu Corporation's assistance. The Chen family not only completed a full business transformation but also successfully took their company public, of course, with the financial support of the Chen family. The Lu Group also quickly rose to become the second largest enterprise in the region. Everything was going well, except for one thing: I didn't give birth to a child with the bloodline of both the Chen and Lu families. Mrs. Lu was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan to force Troy Lu to stay by my side. She even went so far as to confront Vivi Chen, scolding her for being shameless and deserving of being abandoned. The more Mrs. Lu acted this way, the more Troy Lu despised me, believing that I was the one secretly instigating her behavior. So every time his mother forced him to come back, he would attack me with the most vicious language imaginable. But without exception, I would always curse him back even more fiercely. During the worst fight, I even outright cursed him to be left without descendants, which enraged him so much he nearly smashed the entire house. But it's no wonder he was so furious. On one hand, The Liu family was pressuring him with the issue of heirs, threatening to hand over the family business to his cousin Liu Yuan if he didn't produce a child with me soon. Liu Yuan is 2 years younger than Troy Liu. Having lost his parents early, he was raised by Liu's mother, who, along with Liu's father, treated him as their own. However, Liu Yuan is passionate about research and has little interest in business, so Troy Liu has always considered himself the sole heir of the family. But now, Liu's parents have issued an ultimatum: if Troy Liu doesn't have a child with me, he will not inherit the Liu family business in the future. Troy Liu initially wanted Vivi Chen to bear a child and bring it back for me to raise. However, after several miscarriages in recent years, Vivi Chen has found it difficult to conceive again. Forcing Troy Liu to abandon this idea, to smoothly inherit the family business, Troy Liu decided to comply with his parents' wishes and have a child with me. But what he didn't expect was that Vivi Chen, upon learning of his plan, actually attempted suicide. While the two were in the hospital, whispering sweet nothings and pledging eternal love, I had already prepared the divorce papers. However, to my surprise, Vivi Chen, who had been diagnosed by doctors as unlikely to conceive again, was actually pregnant once more. Vivi Chen thought I was so desperate for the title of Mrs. Liu that she rushed over with her baby bump to force me out. Little did she know, I had long grown weary of such a life. In the 5 years of our marriage, I never interfered with Troy Liu's private life, and naturally, he had no idea that I had used this time to build my own golden reputation. Beyond being the eldest daughter of the Chen family, I was also the exclusive designer for the Xiao Corporation. After the design drafts for the new season were completed, Xiao Lin couldn't wait to come knocking on my door. I teased him, asking how afraid he was that I might run off with the drafts. Unexpectedly, Xiao Lin set down the drafts in his hands and said with great seriousness that he was never afraid of me disappearing with the drafts. What he feared was only that I might suddenly vanish. The abrupt yet slightly tender words made my old face instantly flush beyond control. I cleared my throat to break the awkwardly intimate atmosphere before issuing a dismissal. It's getting late, you should head back soon. I thought Xiao Lin would leave quietly, just as he had every time before, but unexpectedly, he didn't move an inch, his gaze still lingering on me. The 5 years are up. Why haven't you divorced him yet? What? I was momentarily caught off guard by Xiao Lin's sudden question. By the time I processed it, his face was already so close to mine that I could count his eyelashes. Chen Xiaorui, I'm running out of patience. Xiao Lin's low, suppressed voice, like a stone suddenly thrown, instantly disrupted my heart. All these years, I haven't been unaware of his feelings for me. It's just that, trapped in the marital fortress with Troy Liu, I couldn't give him hope. I didn't want the Liu family to find leverage against me, nor did I want Xiao Lin to face criticism. My first encounter with Xiao Lin was far from pleasant. On the night I discovered Troy Liu's infidelity, he witnessed me at my most vulnerable, and I mistook him for a liar. Although I often tried to convince myself that I didn't care about Troy Liu's behavior after marrying him, seeing Vivi Chen flaunt their affection still made my heart ache uncontrollably. Troy Liu was my first love, the brightest light of my youth. Letting go completely is just too hard to ease the inner depression. I had a habit of drowning my sorrows at a bar owned by a friend for a while. One day, I drank too much and lost control, vomiting all over the person next to me. Only when I sobered up did I realize that person was Xiao Lin. Because I had to pay for Xiao Lin's dry cleaning, we exchanged business cards. That was when I realized he was no fraud, but the newly appointed head of the Xiao family. Xiao Lin wanted to expand into the jewelry business and, upon accidentally discovering my design talent, hired me as a designer. Our first collaboration directly put Xiao Jewelry on the map. Everyone knew Xiao Lin had a genius jewelry designer who was hard to poach, yet no one knew that person was me. It's strange to say, but ever since Xiao Lin started pressing me for design drafts every day, I've rarely paid attention to the movements of Troy Liu and Vivi Chen. On the rare occasion when Vivi Chen deliberately flaunted ambiguous marks on her neck to provoke me, my heart remained utterly calm. Without a ripple of emotion, instead, I found her pitiful, like a clown jumping about on stage, breaking free from the whirlpool of memories. I looked at Xiao Lin with a tenderness I hadn't even realized I felt. I once told Xiao Lin that my marriage with Troy Lu would only last for 5 years. It's really time to part ways now. I stepped back, trying to put some distance between Xiao Lin and myself, but Xiao Lin didn't give me that chance. For every step I retreated, he advanced one. It was as if this matter wouldn't be over unless I gave him an answer today. After hesitating for a minute, I was just about to tell Xiao Lin that I had already prepared the divorce papers. Then the phone in my pocket suddenly rang. Chen Rui, get your ass back here and sign the divorce papers. I won't let Vivi and the child suffer even the slightest bit of grievance anymore. Troy Lu's arrogant, domineering tone instantly made me laugh in anger. I looked at Xiao Lin, who was right in front of me, and suddenly had the idea of getting revenge on Troy Lu. Under Xiao Lin's stunned gaze, I swiftly stripped off his shirt. Help me with something. Within 10 days, I'll definitely get a divorce. Okay. The trust Xiao Lin blurted out gave me a slight twinge of guilt. But looking at the figure before me that was enough to make anyone drool, I couldn't hold back any longer. With the hand wearing my wedding ring, I touched Xiao Lin's sexy Adam's apple. Then, I took out my phone and snapped a photo that perfectly captured my ring-adorned hand and his abs. I admired the photo I had taken with satisfaction, completely oblivious to Xiao Lin's bobbing Adam's apple and the darkening look in his eyes. After sending the photo to Troy Lu, I added a message along with it. Compared to him, you're such a weakling. The next second, Troy Lu's frantic phone call rang out again. Amused, I watched the incessantly vibrating phone, picturing him flying into a rage, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. But the next second, my smile froze on my face. I forgot there was still a naked man beside me, and I also forgot that his intentions toward me had never been pure. The intense scent of mint, irresistibly delivered by Xiao Lin, overwhelmed my senses. The more I tried to push him away, the stronger his grip became. 10 days. I'll wait for you for 10 more days. After saying these words, Xiao Lin put on his clothes and left without looking back. The wildly beating heart in my chest reminded me of the hidden emotions deep within. I couldn't deny it. After 5 years of companionship and protection, Xiao Lin had long since found his way into my heart. When Troy Lu stormed into the villa, I had just finished washing up and was about to rest. Like a madman, he ransacked every corner of the house under my watchful gaze. Stop looking, they're long gone. I watched his livid face with amusement, a mocking smile curling at the corners of my lips. Men are indeed such hypocrites. When they cheat, it's about finding true love, but when women cheat, it's an insult to their dignity. Who is he? Him? Oh, he's my future husband. My slow, indifferent demeanor instantly struck a nerve with Troy Lu. He roared at me like a mad lion. Chen Rui, we're not even divorced yet, and you're already in a hurry to sleep with another man. Have you no shame? I have no shame. Troy Lu, which one of us is truly shameless? Having an affair before marriage was bad enough, but after marriage, he shamelessly took Vivi Chen to various events, humiliating me, and now he's even bringing her, pregnant, to my doorstep to force my hand. When you tally up each and every incident, the truly shameless ones are him and my so-called aunt, Vivi Chen. However, I don't plan to argue with him about these matters. Because you can never wake someone who is pretending to be asleep. Troy Lu loves Vivi Chen, so he never felt that what he did with Vivi Chen was wrong. In his eyes, the one at fault has always been me. I was the one blocking their path to being together. Of course, so hurry up and convince your mom to let me go. Otherwise, your Vivi Chen will always be the other woman, and the child she bears will only be illegitimate. Troy Lu turned pale with anger, but at the same time, he knew I was speaking the truth. 2 years ago, he once made a scene about divorce, and at that time, we had even signed the divorce agreement. But Lu's mother tore up the divorce agreement and took away our marriage certificates. In front of Vivi Chen, Lu's mother bluntly stated that the Lu family only recognized me as their daughter-in-law, and even if one day Troy Lu and I really reached the point of divorce, their Lu family wouldn't just let any random person in. Vivi Chen ran out crying in anger, and Troy Lu, heartbroken, went after her. In the end, our divorce matter was left unresolved. Now, if Troy Lu wants a divorce, he must first get past his mother. Troy Lu left in anger in the end. I thought he would go to Vivi Chen for comfort. Who would have thought that he would rush to his mother overnight and pressure her into agreeing to our divorce? Early the next morning, his mother, exhausted and distraught, called me. She hopes I can find a way to keep Troy Lu. As for Vivi Chen, she will handle it personally. I'm surprised Troy Lu didn't tell Mother Lu about my search for a man incident. For someone as despicable as him, the reason he didn't speak up was probably due to his male pride acting up. Although Mother Lu treats me well, I have no intention of staying in the Lu family's mess for even a minute longer. I put on an expression of utmost agony, recounting how I had been waiting all these years for Troy Lu to change his mind, but now Vivi Chen's pregnancy again has left me utterly disheartened. I told Mrs. Lu that I was tired and didn't want to wait any longer. I agreed to divorce Troy Lu. It was already 2 days later when Troy Lu came to see me again. I didn't even notice when he walked towards me. If it weren't for Xiao Lin's quick reflexes, that heavy slap of his would have landed on my face. Bitch. Vivi will never be able to get pregnant again in her lifetime. Are you happy now? I was completely baffled. What does Vivi Chen's infertility have to do with me? But Troy Lu's next words revealed the truth to me. It turned out that Mother Lu believed that as long as Vivi Chen was gone, I would definitely not divorce Troy Lu. So, she went to confront Vivi Chen, and during the argument, Vivi Chen accidentally fell and had a miscarriage, due to multiple habitual miscarriages. Vivi Chen lost her ability to conceive. One is his biological mother, the other is the woman he loves most. He doesn't want to blame either of them. In the end, he took out his resentment on me. According to Troy Lu, if I hadn't said those things to his mother, she wouldn't have gone to Vivi Chen, and Vivi Chen wouldn't have had a miscarriage or become infertile. So, everything is my fault. 10,000 alpacas are stampeding through my heart. Enough is enough. I won't take it anymore. Troy Lu. Has your brain, after 20+ years, been raised by termites? You dump every blame on me. If you and Vivi Chen got hit by a car that day, would you still blame me for not driving you? Chen Rui, you really are a ruthless woman. Even at this point, you're still cursing me and Vivi. Fine. There's no reasoning with this kind of lunatic. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words on Troy Lu, so I had Xiao Lin show him out. Xiao Lin asked me what I planned to do next, saying he'd support whatever decision I made. I didn't respond, because all I wanted was to personally sever all ties and grudges with Troy Lu. To make up for Troy Lu's betrayal of me, Mother Lu planned to host a birthday banquet for me on my birthday. I knew what she meant. She just wanted me to consider her and the Lu family's reputation and drop the idea of divorce, to give Troy Lu and Vivi Chen a big gift. I decided to make the most of this birthday banquet. As expected, on the day of the banquet, Troy Lu indeed brought Vivi Chen along. With her beautiful face and Vivi Chen's delicate charm, she certainly had the qualities to captivate men. Vivi Chen basked in the admiring gazes of men at the banquet, her eyes and brows carrying a coy smile. However, her joy was short-lived. The screen, which had been displaying my portrait photos, suddenly started playing a video. The unspeakable content between a man and a woman was abruptly exposed before everyone's eyes. The woman is Vivi Chen, but the man in that video is clearly not Troy Lu. Vivi Chen stared in horror at the increasingly explicit scenes on the screen, rushing over desperately to try and turn off the video. But no matter how many times she pressed, the video continued to play relentlessly. It wasn't until Troy Lu grabbed her shoulders in anguish, demanding to know what was going on, that she collapsed to the floor in tears. I stared blankly at the farcical and ridiculous scene before me, a cold sneer curling at the corner of my lips as my gaze met Troy Lu's. Chen Rui, she's your sister. How could you treat her like this? Sister, ha, when she was climbing into your bed. Troy Lu, why didn't either of you remember she was my sister? I spoke in an icy voice. When she used a fake pregnancy to force my hand, why didn't she remember she was my sister? What did you say? Troy Lu looked at me in disbelief, then turned his gaze to Vivi Chen, who was crying with her head bowed. I walked step by step toward Troy Lu. With each step, I hurled another bomb at Troy Lu. Do you know why she could never keep the child after being with you? It's because she used to party too wildly abroad and had too many abortions for others. Do you think she truly loves you? In reality, she just coveted the status of the Liu family. After being with you, for the thrill of it, she even went abroad multiple times to meet her ex-boyfriend, and to hide the truth of her infertility, she schemed to force a miscarriage and then blamed it on me and your mother. Before Troy Liu could react to what I said, Mrs. Liu was the first to lose her temper. She rushed up to Vivi Chen and slapped her hard several times. My birthday celebration was ruined like this. But I don't feel any regret. When Vivi Chen was beaten by Liu's mother until her face was swollen, Troy Liu carried her away like a chicken. The onlookers gradually dispersed. Some looked at me with sympathy, while others thought my actions were too extreme. But none of them knew that what I had originally intended to show were the affair photos of Troy Liu and Vivi Chen in bed, hoping to expedite the divorce. I don't know who replaced it with this video, but the outcome has left me quite satisfied. When I saw Troy Liu again, he looked utterly disheveled, with none of the aristocratic air he once carried as a wealthy young man. His lips quivered as if he wanted to say something to me. But in the end, no words came out, this time, without any unexpected incidents or obstacles. We quickly went through the divorce procedures. The air I breathe tastes sweet now that I'm free again. Excitedly holding my divorce certificate, I wanted to share the news with Xiao Lin immediately. Troy Liu suddenly spoke up. If I had seen her true colors sooner, if I had turned back earlier, could we have made it to the end? I smiled, this time with relief. Impossible. From the moment your heart followed her, there was never any possibility between us. As soon as I finished speaking, Xiao Lin walked in from outside and, as if no one else was present, took my hand. Seeing this, Troy Liu smiled self-deprecatingly. So it's him. You're right, I really can't compare to him, at the very least. He's not blind. When I was so pestered by Xiao Lin that I had no choice but to go get the marriage certificate, it had already been 2 years since my divorce from Troy Liu. I heard that after the divorce, he drank heavily every day, which led to the Liu family completely giving up on him. Vivi Chen begged to get back together with him, but he despised and rejected her. In the end, she gave up on herself and was deceived by a married older man, losing her temper in a fit of rage. Vivi Chen stabbed the older man several times when he wasn't paying attention. By the time she regained her senses, the man had already stopped breathing. After Vivi Chen was sentenced to life imprisonment for intentional assault, Troy Liu was also diagnosed with stomach cancer. Meanwhile, I found out that the video from my birthday party had been released by Vivi Chen's ex-boyfriend. That man, just like Troy Liu, had been kept in the dark by Vivi Chen. Upon learning all this, though I didn't have any extra emotions, I still felt somewhat wistful in my heart. Everyone must pay the price for their actions, sooner or later, and my price was the 8 years of lost time and the once wholehearted affection I had given. Here is the second article. The day the mafia boss I secretly loved for 10 years was poisoned, instead of becoming his antidote, I pushed his first love into the room, because on the night I detoxified him in our past life. His first love witnessed it with her own eyes. With reddened eyes, the woman ran out the door, only to die of a sudden heart attack on her way to the hospital. Later, the man calmly promised to take responsibility for me and calmly married me. On the night of our wedding, the man pushed me into the basement with a vicious glare. Myra-shan, if you hadn't drugged me that day, Tansy wouldn't have witnessed that scene and died of a broken heart. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the night the man was poisoned. This time, without hesitation, I handed the man over to his first love, watching them finally unite as a couple. Then I faked my death and returned to North City, continuing to live as the young lady of my circle. But the man went mad after I left, kneeling before me with reddened eyes. Myra, I was wrong. Come back to me, please. What are you yelling for, Myra-shan? Isn't this exactly what you wanted? I was jolted awake by the sharp pain in my chest. Finally emerging from the suffocation of my past life, I realized I had been reborn on the very night Zeke Pei was drugged. In my previous life, I loved Zeke Pei to the bone. He was my brother's closest friend, the most powerful figure in the underworld and upper society of South City. When I was once targeted and bound by kidnappers, he found out from my brother and he sought out the bound me, took down dozens of people single-handedly. covered in bloodstains, and rescued me from the center of the encirclement. All the people around lay on the ground wailing in pain, and it awakened the admiration in my young heart. Later, I ran alone to the southern city and boldly confessed my love to him. He coldly left me at the underground boxing gym, saying, "If you can fight your way to me, I'll agree to be with you." So I shed my elegant clothes and devoted myself to studying boxing and martial arts. All for the day when he would look at me with newfound respect, until the moment he was weakened by aphrodisiacs, and I willingly entered his room to become his antidote. The moment he was released, the door was pushed open from the outside by my brother, and at the same time, Zeke Pei's first love stood behind him. After that day, he was forced to marry me, and at the same time, he became a different person. I withstood all the opposition from my family and endured all the scorn in South City for him, believing we would have a happy ending, but on our wedding day, he pushed me off a cliff into the sea. "If it weren't for you, Tansy and I wouldn't have been separated like this. Get away from me." I suddenly sprang up, clutching my neck, gasping for air, and glaring at Zeke Pei in front of me. I realized the situation of my rebirth. Then I violently shoved Zeke Pei aside and rushed out of the room. "Someone, your General Pei is in trouble." In no time, a group of people surrounded me with anxious faces, but I stopped them at the room's entrance. "Call Miss Tansy Liu over, only she can help." My face was deathly pale, but my mind had never been clearer. In this life, even though the fabric on me is half concealing, at least it hasn't come to the final step yet. So now, there's only one thing I want to do: help Zeke Pei and Tansy Liu fulfill their wishes and let me return to Beicheng. What are you all still standing around for? Are you going to take responsibility if Zeke Pei gets suffocated? A few of Zeke Pei's subordinates exchanged glances. Finally realizing what was happening to Zeke Pei in the room, staggering unsteadily, I hastily dragged Tansy Liu over in a panic. Clad in a white gauze dress, the frail Tansy Liu squinted her eyes at me. "Myra Shen, didn't you travel all the way from North City just for this moment? What on earth are you up to by making me come in here?" The air was stiflingly humid and hot, as if I had sunk once more into the dark depths of the ocean in my past life. Choking, I was filled with despair. I lowered my head and clenched my teeth. "If you don't go in now, Zeke Pei's lower half will really be useless from now on." The next moment, the person in front of me pushed me away, and a series of ambiguous moans immediately came from inside the room. Judging by the sounds, the two inside had long been entangled beyond separation. The low growls of a man, the soft moans of a woman, the sound of objects falling, and muffled thuds of impact. Outside the door, Zeke Pei's good brothers cheered. "Our boss is really something. I wonder if Miss Tansy's frame can handle it. The boss knows his limits. Miss Shen might not have it easy. But Miss Liu, she's the one the boss holds dear in his palm. No need for us to worry." The cacophony of sounds around me pierced my heart with pain. One after another, amidst the bloody turmoil in my heart, I drifted away from the room. I hid in the underground boxing gym, and when no one was around, I completely broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. At first, it was stifled whimpers, but then came the wails of anguish. As if all the grievances I had suffered from Zeke Pei over these 2 lifetimes were finally pouring out. Just as I stepped out of the underground fight club, I ran straight into my brother, who had come after hearing the commotion. Seeing me, he immediately froze in place. "Myra, how did you?" He didn't finish the question, but I knew my eyes must be red beyond recognition. My clothes were still torn from Zeke Pei's rough handling, making me look every bit the victim of bullying. Brother instantly became anxious. "Myra, say something. What exactly happened? I'll stand up for you." I held my brother back and explained to him, "It's nothing. Brother, have you forgotten the skills I possess? I wasn't bullied, I just came to understand some things." I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and looked up stubbornly at my brother. "Brother, I want to go back to Beicheng." All right. My brother patted my shoulder and pulled me, teary-eyed, into a hug. "Myra, it's good that you've come to your senses. I came this time to settle the score with that sweetheart of yours, but thankfully you woke up before things got out of hand. Once we're back in Beicheng, Dad will find you a man 1000 times better than your sweetheart." You won't have to suffer in Nancheng anymore. Silly brother, he still doesn't know that the one I love is his good friend Zeke Pei. In my past life, after witnessing that scene between me and Zeke Pei, he beat Zeke Pei severely and tried to take me away. It was my stubborn insistence on making Zeke Pei take responsibility that led to my tragic end later. Thinking of this, I began to shed tears again in my brother's embrace. In my previous life, I sank to the bottom of the sea, never even getting to see my family one last time. I nuzzled against my brother's shoulder. Brother, I won't be going back to Nancheng anymore, nor will I ever love that person again, from now on. Zeke Pei belongs to Myra Shen here, just a stranger in South City. After leaving the Pei family villa complex with my brother, I returned to the underground boxing gym to pack my things. To keep my brother from worrying, I agreed to leave South City once the collaboration with the Pei family was finalized. While waiting for my brother, I took the opportunity to pack up my belongings in South City and say goodbye to my friends here, thinking that I could return to Beicheng in just a couple of days. I felt much more relaxed and finally laughed out loud as I picked up my trophy. Prepare the match for me. As I turned around, I bumped right into Zeke Pei, who was casually draped in his clothes. Whenever something bothered him, he liked to vent his emotions at the underground boxing gym, and I would always be there waiting to arrange everything for him. Now, he was also shirtless, ordering me to take action. As soon as I looked up, my eyes met the dense bite marks covering his upper body. The smile at the corner of my lips froze, and I awkwardly averted my gaze. Find someone else to do it. I don't have time. Perhaps because it was the first time I had refused Zeke Pei, he responded with a cold, ambiguous remark. What just happened was seen by many people. I've already decided to marry Tansy in 3 days. There's no need for you to play hard to get or harbor inappropriate feelings for me. Suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I lowered my eyes and replied calmly. Congratulations, brother Zeke. May you have a harmonious union lasting 100 years. Their marriage was within my expectations. I don't know if it's my imagination, but Zeke Pei seemed to sway slightly when he heard brother Zeke. Probably because ever since I've known Zeke Pei since childhood, I've always called him brother Zeke without fail. Since the day he saved me, I've never called him that again. But now, this brother Zeke feels like a thin veil between us. One that I've drawn back over our relationship. He stood opposite, taking a long moment to react before finally clearing his throat. It's good that you know your limits. His handsome brows furrowed as if he still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by the arrival of Tansy Liu. I've been thinking of training at the underground boxing gym lately. Let me use this ring. Tansy Liu was held in Zeke Pei's arms, yet his icy gaze remained fixed on me as he spoke in a chilling tone. Since Tansy wants it, you'll give up this spot for her, and your room in the Pei family villa, prepare it for Tansy as well. Tansy and I are getting married soon. It's not appropriate for you to keep living next to me. His unblinking stare bore into me. Knowing my place, I silently rose and yielded the spot. All right, I'll go pack my things and move out now. A bitter feeling rose in my heart, so all of Zeke Pei's reactions were just to clear Tansy Liu's name and reassure her, and in the process, he made sure I understood that there could never be anything between us. But Zeke, I even called you brother like that. You will forever only be an elder in my heart. I will return to North City, reuniting with my family amidst the swirling snow. I will never go where I shouldn't, nor covet those I shouldn't desire. I moved into the villa my brother had bought in South City. Unfortunately, it's quite close to Zeke Pei's place. But Zeke Pei has been busy with wedding preparations these past 2 days, and I've been happily chatting and laughing with the folks at the boxing gym, packing and mailing some things, waiting for my brother to finish his business in Nancheng. No matter where I am, I keep hearing people marvel at Zeke Pei and Tansy Liu's grand wedding in Nancheng. Unlike my own hasty wedding in Nancheng in my past life, the diamond-studded wedding dress, gathering all the flowers in the city even if just for 3 days, Zeke Pei gave Tansy Liu the utmost luxury. 2 or 3 days later, as usual, I went to the boxing gym and said goodbye to my friends before leaving. Just as I put down my boxing gloves, a grip on my wrist was so strong I couldn't break free. Zeke Pei, his face dark, pulled me to a secluded spot, looking down at me. Have you been avoiding me these past few days? I twisted my hand, breaking free from Zeke Pei's large grip, and responded indifferently. I didn't. He was surprised that I managed to break free from his hold and, with a forceful move, pinned me against the wall. Only when I could no longer escape did he speak with a darkened expression. Still won't admit it. You stayed right next to me for 2 days, yet I never saw you once. When you did see me, you lowered your head and laughed with another man. Isn't this clearly you avoiding me? Why, are you still holding on to illusions about me? I raised my eyes to meet his gaze. The disgust swirling in his pupils was so sharp it nearly made me tremble. In the end, I suppressed the bitterness in my heart and repeatedly interrupted him. How could that be? Brother Zeke, now you're like an elder in my eyes. When you and Sister Tansy get married, I'll definitely send a grand gift. I won't harbor those dirty thoughts about you anymore. I've truly come to my senses. One after another, I calmly voiced my inner thoughts. Yet Zeke Pei's expression grew unexpectedly darker. The corners of his lips curled into a sneer. Elder, sister-in-law. He narrowed his eyes, his heaving chest betraying inexplicable emotions. He stood up and brushed it off. Easy for you to say. In the end, it's all about playing hard to get, with wicked intentions still lingering. With that, Zeke Pei roughly grabbed my wrist and dragged me to the Pei family villa. Several boxes were placed in the middle of the living room, densely packed, all filled with things that held memories of me and Zeke Pei. There were the boxing gloves I bought for him, the sketchbooks I drew, and the handwritten love letters for every birthday. And now, they were all boldly displayed under the bright lights, subjected to everyone's gaze. If you claim to have no feelings for me anymore, why are you taking these things out and putting them in front of Tansy now? I slowly walked forward. This was indeed something I had packed up, but it wasn't what I had placed in front of Tansy Liu. This was what I had thrown into the trash when I left South City. But even if I said it, Zeke Pei wouldn't believe me. Yes, Zeke, I admit I once had feelings for you that I shouldn't have, but now that you're getting married, I wouldn't stoop to something so degrading. I lowered my eyes to wipe away tears and gave Zeke Pei a deep look. Taking a lighter from my pocket, I bent down and lit an envelope on fire. The words to Zeke Pei were instantly burned beyond recognition. Calmly, I threw the burning envelope into the cardboard box. Boom, Myra-shan. The moment flames erupted, Zeke Pei's furious voice instantly rang in my ears. The flickering light fell on his face, and I was startled to see not a trace of relief, but rather a gloom so dark it seemed to drip with ink. Myra-shan, no matter how convincingly you pretend, you must understand, my heart belongs only to Tansy. The fire's heat scorched the already humid air, searing its way into my heart as well. Involuntarily, I found myself fiercely missing the winds of North City. Harsh as they were, they blew with a refreshing clarity. Fortunately, tomorrow, once my brother finishes handling Zeke Pei's wedding matters, he will take me back to North City. The next day was Zeke Pei's wedding, held beside the famous ends of the earth in South City, a setting of utmost romance. The entire city rushed to send their blessings to the couple before this grand, once-in-a-century wedding. My brother Shen Yi, while changing into his groomsman's suit, told me to go wander around the wedding on my own. I hadn't wanted to come, but he dragged me backstage anyway. Unexpectedly, I ran into Tansy Liu backstage. To my surprise, when she saw me, she showed no shock, only triumph. She beamed with a smile. I never expected little sister Myra to come to my wedding. I took deep breaths, inhaling the oxygen in the air, frowning as I glanced around. No one was there. What did you do to me? I don't want to make things difficult for you, but Myra-shan, I'm about to marry Zeke Pei. I have to know who matters more in his heart, me or you. The next second, I collapsed on the spot. Waking up again, I found myself tied up at the edge of a cliff, with Tansy Liu bound beside me in the same manner. Tansy, following the voice, I saw Zeke Pei standing in the distance, his tall frame accentuated by a sleek wedding suit that highlighted his striking features. Though his movements were filled with panic, his brows were tightly furrowed, his expression consumed by anxiety. Who sent you? If you dare lay a hand on my bride, you'll regret it. I closed my eyes. Tansy Liu's calm demeanor and the words she spoke before I lost consciousness made me instantly realize what had happened. What, is it the same as my past life, a wedding by the cliffside, that dark seawater? I had always thought that in my past life, it was someone Zeke Pei had offended who kidnapped me to the cliff's edge on my wedding day, but now the kidnapper's face is exactly the same as in my past life. The two of them were probably together behind my back even in that previous life. The sea breeze on the mountain chilled my face, and I realized I had been crying uncontrollably for who knows how long, but I couldn't voice my accusations because the kidnapper had tightly covered my mouth, leaving me only able to whimper, thinking of breaking free from Miss Shun. We were just entrusted by someone to see who he truly values more when faced with life and death. Tears fell as I wailed inwardly, what was there to see? Didn't this wedding already say it all? After a half-minute pause, Zeke Pei stumbled forward to reach us, his dark eyes locking fiercely onto the kidnappers. Name your price, I'll give you anything. Just don't harm these two, Boss Pei. We've heard of your formidable reputation. Kidnapping them isn't just about risking death for some money. Zeke Pei's pupils dilated. What do you mean? The kidnapper placed his foot behind the two of us. You, Zeke Pei, have been brilliant all your life. We just want to see what you, Zeke Pei, look like in agony. Ha ha ha, Zeke Pei, one is your fiancé, the other is the pampered young lady you raised. Today, one of them must die. Beneath them was a bottomless cliff and the deep sea, while beside them, Tansy Liu's tearful voice was unbearably fragile. Zeke, save Myra, or you won't be able to explain it to the Shun family. The next second, the kidnapper's foot was placed behind Tansy Liu, and half of her body was dangling over the edge of the cliff. Zeke Pei was so frightened that his face turned deathly pale, and his whole body trembled. Save Tansy, the answer blurted out. The kidnapper smiled triumphantly, and Tansy Liu, who had been feigning terror and tension, secretly curled the corners of her lips. I also felt relieved upon hearing the long-anticipated answer. My tears were gone, for they had long been drained dry. The scorching beach of South City, swept by mountain winds, left my face pale and at peace. The moment Tansy Liu was pushed out, just as the kidnapper's hand was about to reach me, I spread my arms wide, letting the severed rope snap sharply by our ears. He gave Zeke Pei, who was holding Tansy Liu, a deep look, just one glance, and the emotions in his eyes surged violently, changing in a way I couldn't understand. There was tension, confusion, panic, and tension. Panic and tension. I don't understand. Wasn't this his choice? I calmly fell into the sea. It didn't matter anymore. In this lifetime, the outcome was just like this. Zeke Pei, may we never meet again. As the words faded, my entire body tumbled over the endless cliff edge, like a broken eagle without wings, plummeting straight into the deep sea amidst the damp, rising mountain winds. Look. At the moment Myra Shun fell, Zeke Pei abruptly released his grip on Tansy Liu. Even he himself didn't realize why he had been staring blankly at the bottom of the cliff. His timing was too coincidental, so much so that he didn't even catch a glimpse of Myra Shun's retreating figure. He reached out his hand, only to let it hang in midair, watching helplessly as the mountain wind carried away the little princess he had raised. Myra's ink-black hair fluttered in the cold wind, and for the first time, he felt his heart gripped so tightly. Myra, Zeke Pei shouted at the top of his lungs, yet couldn't even hold onto the shadow of the figure at the bottom of the cliff. His heart pounded violently in his chest until he realized he would never again have the chance to cherish the little girl he adored. Stars began to flicker before his eyes. Really, he would never see the princess he had held dear in his hands since childhood again. The next second, Zeke Pei fainted on the spot, staggering toward the edge of the cliff, stopped by Tansy Liu beside him. The kidnapper had long since disappeared without a trace. Are you crazy, Zeke? You'll die if you fall off the cliff. Zeke Pei suddenly spat on the ground, clutching his chest as he began to retch. Die. His eyes were bloodshot. Dead. What did Tansy Liu just mean? Myra, is she dead? After saying this, he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. In his dream, he had a long dream where he married Tansy Liu, yet, he was not happy. Throughout his life, his mind was haunted by the last look Myra gave him at the cliff's edge. Quietly, it was more heartbreaking than any desperate cry after death, that pale, plain face was filled with complete indifference and disregard toward him. After several struggles, he finally managed to get a little closer to Myra. Her beautiful dark eyes showed not the slightest ripple of emotion, nor any fluctuation when looking at him. It was as if, to Myra, he was nothing more than a stranger, but not entirely. Looking closely, he sensed nothing but resentment in Myra's calm eyes. Resentment. Beads of cold sweat formed on his forehead as he clenched the sheets. Suddenly bolting upright from the bed, Tansy Liu held him back, and the next second Xinyi appeared at the door. The two close friends locked eyes, with Xinyi's gaze filled entirely with anger. "Zeke Pei, where's Myra?" Unlike his usual authoritative demeanor, Zeke Pei rarely lowered his head. "Myra, she." For the first time, Xinyi saw hesitation in Zeke Pei and walked over to grab him by the collar. "What do you mean by acting like this now? I'm asking you, where's Myra? You used to dote on her the most." Zeke Pei's evasive glance lasted only a moment before Xinyi caught it, sending a wave of panic through Xinyi's heart. "Speak up, Zeke Pei. Someone said they saw Myra being kidnapped by robbers and you went to rescue her. Have you brought Myra back safely now?" Zeke Pei remained silent. The corners of his eyes flushed red. With a loud bang, Xinyi punched Zeke Pei squarely in the face. "Your reputation in Nancheng is nothing but a paper tiger. You couldn't even protect my sister. I'll go find her myself." Xinyi released Zeke Pei not because he didn't want to keep teaching him a lesson, but because Xinyi had something more important to do. He was going to find Myra. The moment Xinyi left, Zeke Pei completely collapsed onto the hospital bed. My mind kept replaying everything that had just happened. "Zeke, what's wrong with you? Why won't you even look at me since you woke up? What about our wedding? Zeke, you promised you'd marry me." Tansy Liu anxiously tugged at Zeke Pei, trying to find some clue in his demeanor, but no matter what she did, Zeke Pei remained slumped in place, completely unresponsive. After what felt like half the day, Zeke Pei finally reacted. Instead, he pulled out the 4-needle from his hand and stumbled toward the door in a desperate rush. "Tansy, we'll hold our wedding later. I need to sort out my thoughts first. I must find Myra. And those kidnappers, I won't let them off easy." Tansy Liu remained where she was, continuously replaying Zeke Pei's words in her mind. Originally intending to chase after him, she ended up calling the kidnapper's number instead. "Bro, you better lay low for a while." Zeke Pei seems serious this time. "If there's really nowhere to hide, call me." Tansy Liu, originally dressed in white, instantly seemed like a completely different person, her eyes brimming with malice and calculation. But the next second, Zeke Pei, who had just left, returned unexpectedly, and collided with the resentful gaze in Tansy Liu's eyes. "You come with me to find that kidnapper. You're so close to them. We're bound to find them." However, Zeke Pei didn't notice the fleeting resentment and anger in Tansy Liu's eyes. By the time he dragged Tansy Liu to the kidnapper's hideout, the place was already empty. With no trace of the kidnapper, Zeke Pei angrily punched the wall in frustration. Instantly, a streak of blood trickled down the wall, and Zeke Pei's gaze was fixed intently on that bloodstain, as if the crimson hue had seeped into his very eyes. Tansy Liu was so frightened that her body trembled. Noticed by Zeke Pei, she frowned helplessly. For some reason, in the past, whenever he looked at Tansy, he only saw her as pitiable and heart-wrenching. But now Tansy always looks so frightened. It stirred up an inexplicable restlessness in his heart. Reluctantly, he tried to comfort Tansy Liu. "Tansy, I must find Myra, alive or dead. And as for these two kidnappers, I swear they won't get off easy. If you can't take it anymore, go back first." Tansy Liu recovered from the shock and grabbed Zeke Pei's sleeve. "But Zeke, what about our wedding? Since in your heart, I'm more important than Myra Shen, then you should value our wedding even more." The expected comfort and gentle reassurance didn't come, and Zeke Pei's handsome brows furrowed. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "We'll talk after the wedding." After tossing a sentence to Tansy Liu, he opened the door and left the Pei family villa. "Wedding." 2 words made Zeke Pei's frown deepen even more. He had thought about it before. After all, something like that had happened, and he definitely had to take responsibility for Tansy. But his mind couldn't help recalling how Myra had calmly called Tansy's sister-in-law in front of him earlier. Her somber dark eyes lingered in his mind, impossible to shake off, unable to break free. He searched for Myra all night but couldn't find her anywhere. Even lying in bed, he remained dazed and confused. Unbeknownst to Zeke Pei, Shinyi was also searching for Myra Shin by the seaside. But even when Zeke Pei was asleep, his dreams were filled with Myra Shin. He was drowsy and sluggish. Perhaps the wind from shouting by the shore all evening had gotten to him. His body felt utterly unwell. He had vomited blood again during yesterday's wedding, and his mind was already clouded. Lying on the bed, just like when he was unconscious before, he moaned in cold sweat, lost in his dreams. Finally, he saw the Myra he had been longing for, but Myra wasn't as cold to him as she had been these past few days. The woman he drugged and moved in his dream that day was Myra. When his thoughts were tangled, Shinyi rushed out to castrate him, but Myra stopped Shinyi and told him she loved him. His feelings were complicated. After all, the little princess he had raised for so many years suddenly said she loved him. Anyone would feel at a loss, but by a twist of fate, perhaps because of the Shin family, maybe out of a sense of responsibility, or even the joy he couldn't suppress in his heart, he married Myra. He thought that as long as he took responsibility for Myra, bringing her home safely as his Mrs. Pei, everything would be fine. But his thoughts were still too naive. Myra was not content with this. She repeatedly hurt Tansy, unwilling to let Tansy live in peace. She even went so far as to provoke Tansy after the engagement, driving Tansy to attempt suicide multiple times. Only then did he realize that the one he had fallen for was the little princess who used to follow him around calling him Brother Zeke, not this scheming woman she had become. So on the day of their wedding, when Myra was kidnapped by bandits, he merely watched coldly as Myra Shin cursed at Tansy, watched coldly as the kidnappers pushed her into the sea. Though his heart was stirred, the thought of all the things Myra had done in her life made it impossible for him to persuade himself further. But later, he discovered it was all a deception orchestrated by Tansy Liu. He had personally pushed the little princess he once cherished off a cliff. No matter how many unspeakable sorrows and laments there were, his little princess was gone. He punished Tansy Liu, throwing her and the kidnappers into the police station together. But even so, his Myra never came back. The Shin and Pei families severed all ties from then on. Shinyi beat him up fiercely that day, but no matter how much it hurt, his longing for Myra in his heart could not cease. Opening his eyes again, Zeke Pei surveyed his surroundings and understood the experiences of 2 lifetimes. He lay on the bed, unable to recover from the shock for a long time. Suddenly, his phone rang. "Boss Pei, we found those 2 kidnappers." By the time Zeke Pei arrived at the underground boxing gym, the kidnappers had already been tortured beyond recognition, hanging from sandbags and being beaten. Tansy Liu was there too. Her body trembled slightly with each blow the kidnappers received. Zeke Pei watched the scene before him with cold eyes. In the past, he would have felt heartache for Tansy Liu, but now, he recalled everything he had experienced in his previous life, and he couldn't muster even a shred of sympathy for Tansy Liu. In fact, there was even resentment. "Zeke, you're finally here. Now that these 2 kidnappers have been caught, the big rock in your heart must have fallen. Can we get married now?" Tansy Liu remained completely unaware of Zeke Pei's unusual behavior. She just clung to Zeke Pei, her mind filled with thoughts of marriage. Once she joins the Pei family, everything will be settled. But Zeke Pei forcefully pulled Tansy Liu away from himself. With a mocking curl of his lips, he repeated coldly, "Getting married." What surged in Zeke Pei's eyes was overwhelming hatred. "You're just as despicable as you were in your past life." Suddenly, Tansy Liu was violently thrown to the ground by Zeke Pei and pinned before the 2 kidnappers. "Look at the 2 of them. Aren't you familiar?" Tansy Liu, these are your dear brothers from the orphanage. To marry into the Pei family, you'd really stop at nothing." Suddenly, Tansy Liu didn't raise her eyes. Her gaze filled with disbelief. How did Zeke Pei know about her relationship with these 2? Impossible. Ever since she was rescued by the Pei family, she had hidden it very well. There was no way Zeke Pei could have known. What was even more unexpected was that Zeke Pei directly grabbed Tansy Liu by the hair and threw her to the ground. "On our wedding day, you had these 2 kidnap Myra and throw her into the sea. just to see who mattered more to me, Tansy Liu. I might as well tell you now, no one is more important to me than Myra. The next second, Zeke Pei stomped on Tansy Liu's face, leaving her unable to move. All these years, Zeke Pei could be said to have fought his way out of South City. It was his ruthless decisiveness and merciless cunning along the way that earned him his current status, so he was different from those aristocratic young masters like Shun Yi. When ruthless, there's no reasoning to be had. That day, Zeke Pei locked Tansy Liu in a room for 3 days and nights, leaving her to fend for herself in Nancheng. He had more than enough power to do so. Later, Tansy Liu didn't starve to death in that room. Opening the door again, one of her brothers from the orphanage had died, his body not a single piece of intact flesh when he passed. Later, Tansy Liu went to prison and spent the rest of her life there, but Zeke Pei seemed to remain forever on that wedding day. Originally, it should have been his and Myra's wedding. 3 months later, Zeke Pei woke up groggily from his hospital bed on an ordinary afternoon. Because of Myra, he had fallen gravely ill and remained bedridden. Even in his dreams, the events of his past life gradually became clearer to him. It wasn't until the very end that he realized how many wrongs he had committed against Myra. Dimly, he woke from his dream again, dazedly processing his current situation. Finally realizing his body truly couldn't hold on anymore. In truth, sometimes he would fall in love with the version of himself in dreams, the one who won Myra's affection, unlike the present him, for whom even a single meeting with Myra has become an unattainable wish. This was all his own choice. Suddenly, someone rushed in from outside. "Boss Pei, there's news from the Shun family. There's news from the Shun family." Zeke Pei remained motionless for a long while before slowly raising his head. "What did you say?" His subordinate now understood Boss Pei's disbelief, as over the past 3 months, he had witnessed firsthand how much importance Boss Pei placed on Miss Myra Shun. "President Pei, Miss Myra Shun has been found. She's returned to the Shun residence." Zeke Pei instantly got up from the hospital bed and ran toward the Shun family home. Myra. He had flown to Beicheng before, but never had time felt so agonizingly slow. As soon as he got off the plane, he noticed that it was snowing in North City. Zeke Pei reached out his hand, and the snowflakes slowly melted in his palm, just like when he first arrived in North City. As soon as the snowflakes melted, Myra's delicate features appeared in his eyes. From then on, he unconsciously began to take care of that small figure, shielding the little princess in his heart from harm. "Brother Zeke, I love the snowflakes in Beicheng the most. Tell me, if we stand together in the same snowfall, does that count as growing old together?" At that time, he didn't have the chance to appreciate the beauty of it. Only now does he realize that those were the days he most wishes to return to, yet can never go back. When he entered the Shun family's home, his body couldn't stop trembling. He didn't relax until he saw Shun Yi. "What are you doing here?" After saying this, Shun Yi punched Zeke Pei in the face. "You don't deserve to stand in the Shun family." Shun Yi's eyes burned with fury as he recalled the suffering Myra had endured when he found her in that small coastal village. He couldn't help but imagine tearing the mastermind behind it all to pieces. Shun Yi acknowledged that Zeke Pei had saved his life numerous times over the years, but that could never justify harming Myra. The thought that the kidnapper had acted because Zeke Pei failed to handle his own emotions properly only fueled his anger. Letting Myra suffer from unrequited love for so many years made Shun Yi furious. His fists clenched tightly, ready to punch Zeke Pei in the face again. "I just want to see Myra." Bang! "Bro, stop hitting him." A clear and melodious voice came from inside the door, and at that moment, the two finally saw Myra emerging from the Shun family. Myra had changed a lot, yet it seemed as if nothing had changed at all. Those eyes of hers were still breathtakingly beautiful. In just a moment, Zeke Pei's gaze lingered on Myra and didn't waver. In the next second, Myra pulled Shun Yi behind her. Her gaze at Zeke Pei was filled with wariness. Instantly, Zeke Pei trembled, his voice even choking with emotion. "Myra, you." In his heart, he was ultimately stung by Myra's evasive demeanor. He wanted to step forward, but Myra Shun dodged away. "Myra." In just a moment, he took advantage of Myra's fear of his reaction. His eyes turned red. "Myra, are you avoiding me?" Zeke Pei's dark eyes burned intensely, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pierce Myra Shen's heart. Myra Shen hadn't seen Zeke Pei for 3 months. Those days spent in the seaside mountain village. Upon seeing Zeke Pei again, there was truly no ripple of emotion left. "I'm not avoiding you. I just don't want you to hurt my family." Zeke Pei froze in place. Hurt family. So in both lifetimes, in Myra's eyes, he had ultimately been such a scoundrel. He paused for a few seconds, gave a bitter smile, then stepped back from the two of them. "I won't, Myra. I'll never hurt your family again, and I would never hurt you." After saying this, Zeke Pei froze in place, instantly wanting to swallow back the words that had slipped out unconsciously. He lowered his gaze for half a second, recalling everything that had happened before. Seeing the mockery at the corner of Myra's lips, he couldn't help but take an unnatural step back. No one could have imagined that the powerful figure who strategized and manipulated everything in South City would ever feel so guilty. But who could he blame? It was all the bitter fruit of his own making. So Xinyi had long stopped believing Zeke Pei's excuses, throwing another punch aimed at his face. "Zeke Pei, are you even worthy?" The next second, Myra stopped Xinyi. "Brother, there's no need for this." Myra Shen shielded Xinyi behind her. "Brother, I want to talk to Zeke Pei alone." Xinyi naturally disagreed. "How could that be? Myra, I remember everything he did crystal clear." Once Myra Shen made up her mind, no one could stop her. She smiled at Xinyi and said, "Brother, I know my limits." Xinyi tried to stop them for a long time, but in the end, Zeke Pei still followed behind Myra Shen. They disappeared into the swirling snow. Zeke Pei followed behind Myra. Since Myra remained silent, he naturally didn't dare to speak first. After what seemed like an eternity, the graceful figure ahead suddenly stopped, causing Zeke Pei to bump into Myra. Myra merely lifted her eyes calmly, just as she always had, her gaze now completely indifferent. She seemed to have no interest in him or in what he was doing. The mere thought of this possibility made Zeke Pei's heart ache so much he could barely breathe. It was Myra who spoke first, pulling Zeke Pei out of those painful thoughts. "Zeke Pei, you've remembered everything, haven't you? Your reactions just now were unnatural. It should be clear now that I truly don't like you anymore." Zeke Pei froze, his heart tightening painfully. Myra Shen continued speaking to herself. "Then you should understand even more clearly that between you and me." Only then did Zeke Pei gather the courage to meet Myra's gaze. He greedily fixed his eyes on her features, unwilling to look away for even a second. "Between us now, it might even be called hatred." A glimmer of moisture flashed in Zeke Pei's dark eyes. Myra Shen continued, "So Zeke Pei, how do you still have the nerve to come looking for me?" As her words fell, Myra took a step closer, locking eyes directly with Zeke Pei. For the first time, Zeke Pei felt the snowstorm of Beicheng so scorching and tearing. He involuntarily took a step back, his lips trembling. Though countless thoughts raced through his mind, not a single word could escape his lips. For the first time, he understood what it truly meant to retreat. Zeke Pei stood rooted to the spot, letting the coldest winds and snow pile layer upon layer over him. Was it cold? It didn't feel as cold as it did in his heart. But it was still cold, yet he didn't want to move. It was a punishment, yet also seemed like a release. Myra Shen left, leaving these words for Zeke Pei. Even if there was hatred in her eyes, there wasn't the slightest ripple of emotion. Zeke Pei came to a realization. To Myra, he was merely a stranger with an unpleasant past. That night, he stood in the snowstorm for who knows how long. The snow in North City was chilling, and even more so, it could wound. He might be punishing himself, or perhaps he hadn't figured out how to spend the rest of his life drowning in endless remorse. How was he supposed to endure it? So that night, he was in the thick snowstorm of the northern city, and fell into eternal sleep, never to be found again. With a smile, he stopped breathing.